Good evening, Tracy. Sorry about that. We had two times we tried bringing Jeremy on air. It didn't happen, so we're really sorry about that. But finally, Jeremy was so committed. He's like, no, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna make this happen. So he tried everything, and he's here with us. So we're very glad. And just a brief introduction. I'm Raj Singh. I have a Griteja Atwal along with me as my co-host, and we have a very special team member from our community, Neela Duga. So she would be leading this show along with us, and we welcome Jeremy Silcox. And Jeremy, very welcome on the show. We're honored to have you with us tonight. And Neela, please take us to our next steps from here.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? Sorry about that. It's a good thing I'm not doing distance learning.
Well, we're going to get into that, so don't feel alarmed when the hard questions come. But great to have you this evening. And we'll just jump right in with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection with Tracy?
Sure. It goes back a long time, so I'll try to be brief as possible, but I think it gives you context on why I'm running and why I'm running again, and kind of what my foundation, what I believe in, and so forth. So I was raised here ever since the 4th grade. So went to Southwest Park. Went to Monte Vista, Tracy High. So I had an opportunity to experience, Tracy's Unified years ago. I graduated in 1994 from high school. And I just had the opportunity to, let me take a step back about my family at the time. I grew up with a family that was lower middle class. Parents were not college educated, hard workers, down to earth. I worked as a kid. Multiple jobs to provide for myself and just kind of help with the family needs and so forth. And great parents. I was fortunate to have good parents, but just kind of their background was not educated. I was the first on my side of the family to receive a college degree, which was very important. My parents preached that growing up, to work hard and get a degree. Not knowing exactly what that would provide for me, but more so that they knew it would give me opportunities that they didn't have. And so I was involved in sports as a kid, throughout the community and in school and so forth. And I had the opportunity to receive a scholarship to play football at a junior college, the University of Wyoming. I had some great experiences there. And it really kind of set the stage for what was next. My wife also was a Tracy I graduate. She had some wonderful experiences. She was led by some wonderful people. We were taught as kids to go work hard and listen, have respect for those around you, for respect for your elders. And so that was important to us. And I think that was what helped us propel into college life, to know that if we just work hard and stay focused on that, and also have respect for people around us, then it will take us places, not knowing exactly where that would take us. So I got a business degree at the University of Wyoming, had some wonderful experiences there. And I like to give credit to those that helped me get to that point. My parents first, but also had many coaches and teachers that took their position seriously. And so I followed their lead to see something better for myself than I could see at the time. And as I was considering, I got a business degree at the University of Wyoming, and as I was considering what's next, I was reached out from a good friend. He was actually a coach, and I was good friends with his brother, younger brother, but he was the new athletic director at Tracy High, and he asked me to come back and teach and coach. Although I didn't know that teaching was necessarily going to be my long-term career, I knew that coaching was a part of my life. So I did that for a couple of years, changed careers in 2001 to financial planning. I met my wife around that time as well, and she taught for Tracy Unified for a few years. And we as a family decided that as we started having kids, that we wanted her to fully be in the home. And that's a whole nother career decision, but that was what we decided. And so we have 5 children now, ranging from 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 9th, and 11th. So our kids go to George Kelly and West High. and we actually homeschool our middle child. That's another conversation, but yeah, that leads to, I've been coaching for probably 14 years in TUSD, but a couple of years ago, that kind of led to an opportunity to serve on the board, and I felt like that was a good opportunity for me to take to give back to the community. I feel like I have multiple perspectives I speak from. And so I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, Neela, but that kind of gives you a pretty good understanding of who I am and where I came from with my wife as well.
So also for our viewers, can you tell them how long have you served on the board?
Coming up on 2 years. So this is obviously my first year was an eye-opener, and then I feel like my second year kind of caught stride on what really my responsibilities were and so forth.
Okay, and while you were serving, what did you feel was one of your most challenging issues or most challenging moments while you were serving on the board this last 2 years?
That's a good question. I would say some of the challenging things the board deals with is trying to make decisions that affect people's lives, and I don't think anybody on the board takes that lightly, especially when it comes to positions and jobs and so forth, and cuts that might be necessary. I think that's one of the hardest things that I lose sleep over. But I would say that when I work with the people in leadership in the district, and also with the board, and also with the different union presidents and so forth, more TEA than the CSEA president, I would say that you get comfort in knowing that all these decisions we're making are very difficult, and we just want to do what's best for the district as a whole.
Okay. Now moving forward, now that you're running for the seat once again, what are some of the things that you feel are your vision, and what are the pillars of this new campaign?
I would say if you want to walk away with anything, I hope that people feel that, I'm not necessarily going to run on some specific issue. I feel like I look at the decisions we make as a whole, not so much pro this group or against this group or pro these three things or et cetera. I feel like I try to take a global view of the decisions and the direction the district is going, and try to be wise with those decisions and the resources that the district is given, and also be a support to those that are working really hard to make TUSD a better educational experience. One of my worries, obviously, if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, my answer would be a little different with COVID, is that one of the things that I try to, and this is not news to the district leadership, but I try to be very upfront about, is my perspective as a parent, and how people are starting to choose what, just like we did as a family, my wife and I, we make choices for our kids that we feel are the best for them. We chose to take one out of school and homeschool him because we feel it's the best for him. And I think today parents have more choice than ever before in the history of education to choose charter school, to choose independent study, to choose private school. And I think as a district, we have to be very focused, and I'm talking across the board, about adding as much value as possible so students and parents feel like they're getting the best education they can possibly get in TUSD.
Okay. Now with COVID and everything changing and everyone's kids at home, how do you feel the district has prepared parents and students for this new way of learning? Well,
that's a good question. I would say that the target was always moving the last 5 or 6 months. So when it first came out, March 13th, the order was to shelter in place. Certainly the district and the teachers and everybody involved was not prepared for the spring semester, the rest of that semester. They're not designed to be, full in school. That's just not, there was no way they could really offer the greatest value, especially with the speed of the change. The message came out on Friday at like 2 o'clock. The next thing you know, all kids are at home, and the district's scrambling to put together packets. to offer some value to the kids. Of course, that we could always reflect on there was probably opportunities to be a little better at that. But at that same time, they also started putting together a task force to start developing a game plan for this school year with 3 options, which would be the first one, or one of them would be 100% back with some kind of safety precaution. Again, as time passed, the issues with COVID had changed, especially in our county. So in June, they were kind of planning on going back to school with the option of 100% distance learning. So teachers and students had a choice if they wanted, and parents had a choice if they wanted to have a distance learning experience because they were worried personally, they could have that. And about 2/3 at the time, I'm talking about in June, they're about 2/3 of parents were saying they want to send their kids back to school. And so at the time, I was thinking that makes sense. Maybe 1/3 stays home, and that would naturally thin out the campuses. You could probably better social distance. Kids are kids; they're going to do their things, but it would be a little better. As time passed through June, our county, which is what we're lumped in with the county, we're not viewed as a city. Our numbers were getting worse. But at the same time, they had already been discussing multiple options: the full-time go back with an independent study option, and some form of split schedule. So those were 3 were already being in discussion with that task force, which included the unions, district leadership, teachers, other people in the community, or in the classified unions as well. So they were trying to develop 3 game plans for an unknown outcome with COVID. Of course, the announcement came that we're forcing you guys to go home because we're lumped in the county. And then that's kind of where we're at today, is 100% distance learning.
Well, given the current situation and knowing that kids are at home, one of, I think, a question that many parents are asking is, we're hearing that some kids have laptops, some don't have access. What is your position as far as the district and their role in making sure that each and every student has the technology available to be able to get the education that they need?
I think right now it's necessary. It has to happen. Of course, they have a number of orders for laptops, and not every student has a laptop at this point. But I think it's necessary for most effective teaching of, especially the kids that are less fortunate. My wife works from home. We purchased laptops, and we're borrowing 1 or 2 as well, because I have 5 kids. So, and we're on Monday. There's hotspots coming out from the district, so you can likely get a hotspot from your school on Monday. This week, all the paras have been, or I think last week, all the paras have been given laptops so they can support this form of learning with the teachers. And then right now, I think they've got all the high schools covered, and a few of the middle schools covered, and there's more coming in as we speak. And the idea is that they go to the neediest people, or the parents or the families that need them most. Like me, we don't need them. We're gonna try to solve this as a family. And obviously, I'm not very good at it, but my wife is, and the kids are doing just fine. But that's kind of where we're at as a district in the process.
Well, and that kind of leads into my next question. I know earlier we had some difficulty getting on. So I don't know, Raj, do you want to take that one up?
No, I think I'm going to leave that question to you, but I just wanted to kind of get a little bit more clarification, since you brought a really great point for all the audience who's listening and will be listening later on about the hotspots that are coming from Monday, tomorrow. Yes. Is there going to be any sort of information will be published via TUSD, how a parent or any guardian can look into it so they can help their kid, or they can help them to set that up? Is there any protocols being published? What's the situation on that?
No, that's a good question, Raj. I don't know if I'm going to answer it I don't know if I have enough information on that specific question to answer it directly, but I do know they have provided a lot of professional development, a lot of training, especially for teachers as they transition to distance learning. And me, obviously, if I was a teacher, I'd probably need all the training you can offer. I believe, like, we received, my family at George Kelly, we received information directly from the school that hotspots are available from the automatic calls that we get. So I believe that's across the board. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how it's been communicated to parents.
That's fair enough. Like, not really expecting you to provide the information since it's not already out, but that is something I think will be beneficial for all the parents if that can be published or broadcasted. Because like we were having some difficulty today, we need somebody to kind of gear that to put that everything together. So I think that would be very beneficial. And
right. So just from the financial aspect, so just wonder, as you have mentioned, that technology readiness district is working on it. So I just kind of was aware that there was a deficit of 11.7 million before COVID. 10% more the state has cut down on that one. So total deficit for 2020 and 2021 is 26 million. On top of that, you're seeing this unforeseen kind of our laptop purchase and all that thing. So how do you think the district will be able to mitigate that gap?
That's a great question. I would say that fiscally, at this point, the district's in pretty good position as far as the reserve amount when you compare other districts in the county. However, the issues are going to get pretty big as we go forward. A lot of the money that was, not a lot, but some of the money that was received to take care of the budget deficits this year are just one-time monies, specifically for COVID from the CARES Act. And so that money going forward, we can't, if it's me, if you can't depend on it, because we don't know if there's going to be another bailout. So there's going to be some hard decisions that are going to have to be made here within 6 months. Is roughly what I'm thinking based on what I know, knowing that state revenues are down substantially. At this point, we're a balanced budget, but the projections, to your point, are pretty significant. And so part of the flip side of that is that's exactly why, as a district, as an educational institution, we have to offer as much value as possible to keep these kids in our district, number one. And number two, they started a charter school, an independent charter school, to attract kids outside the county that could, and within our district as well, that now parents and students have another option that we might retain some more to help to add value to parents and families that want a different experience, and also to retain them within TUSD. And so those are a couple things they're trying to do, but there's some realities coming that, I don't get excited about having this conversation in 6 months, but I know it's coming. And part of me says that's why we need to have sound fiscal decisions and make some hard choices that support the students, support the staff, and the facilities within the resources we're given.
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on that, as you mentioned, there could be some hard decisions. So there was a couple of things that the district was talking. One thing was just not to buy the textbooks for the next year. It will save approximately 3 million. Then to eliminate the bus routes, that is, our kids are using approximately 1,200 students are using, so it will save approximately $2 million. And the last thing that is the hard part is to just lay off 100 of our faculty members or the teachers. So what do you think? So because it is coming, and as a candidate, so there would be lots of options, but these things our district was considering. What do you think? What your take would be on those?
Well, I would say to you that the reality is it's going to happen across the state. It's not just our district or our county. Across the state, there are going to be some. They were talking about back in May when I say they, the county and the district, the higher level leadership, they were talking about eliminating sports. They were talking about, all of them were talking about bus routes. I mean, it's pretty dire. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's not what I personally want. I don't want anybody to have less service, especially these kids that probably need it more. But at some level, you also have to provide some stability and some peace of mind to the people that work for the district, so they stay employed and happy and so forth. But like I said, I don't have a really wonderful answer to say. I just think there's some realities that we're all going to have to face. Just like whatever institution or business you're in, I'm sure you've all faced some of those realities. I know I have personally in my business. If you're about a third of the companies in America have excelled through this, but the other 2/3 are not necessarily excelling, and they've all had to make some hard choices.
Right. So as you mentioned, yeah, we have to work with the resources that we have. So the follow-up question, as Neela had the follow-up question on the COVID, I'll just request her to please continue.
All right.
Well, this kind of leads up to that question. I know, the schools are providing to some extent some laptops and technology, but just like when we were leading into this discussion, we had some technological issues and it took us a while to figure it out. And we're for adults, and I think we have to, with like some sort of, technical background on as well. What is the district doing as far as, what is your vision as far as support for these parents that are not only, they have multiple children that are trying to do online classes and do this distance learning, but also trying to at times do their job, and some that don't have the technological knowledge to help them. So is there any kind of program or some sort of support for, a lot of these children are basically logged on by themselves, like trying to do it on their own. So what is your vision for that going forward?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So if you looked at the daily schedule, they have their, let's say it's a Monday, and the student is in first, second, and third, or in a class, first, second, and third period on Zoom for 40 minutes each. And there's a 20-minute break in between roughly, and they're to do the assignments on their own. But in those periods, the teachers are taking roll. So then after lunch, teachers are reaching out. They're trying to reach out to the students directly by phone. That's the role of the paras too. They'll be reaching out to students individually and trying to give individual instruction, but also try to bridge the gap between where they are with the technology or whatever the issues are, to get them involved in this process. So I believe there's one-on-one calls going out after lunch period, because that's when the teachers have a little more freedom to do that work. And then there's also lessons being taught one-on-one with kids that came to class but need some help. That's the opportune time to make those connections, but more importantly, to reach out to those kids that don't have the resources, and just try to figure out the bottleneck is. That's what I believe is happening. That's the goal of the district.
That's a good information to know. Thank you, Jeremy. Sorry, not to interrupt you, Neela. Go ahead.
No, and also, one of the big aspects of going to school is the social part of it. Is there anything, and I know it's something that's not going to be solved overnight, but what is the district thinking about as far as a program to keep these kids somehow socially connected as well?
I don't know if there's a specific program that does that outside of what they naturally do. I think, if I could speak freely, I think the goal is to, as soon as we can, go back to some form of split schedule. And this is just me speaking from my observations. And so that kids get connected again with not only their peers, but but with the administration and the staff and so forth. And I mean, that is the goal right now. The decision's out of our hands as far as you know, that decision and that option, but you'll have both sides of the coin make their point, but which is not I'm not trying to argue one way or another, but the goal of the district is to get back as soon as they can.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, as you have the financial background, so we have some special question for you from the current student as well as the student who just graduated. So let me add them. So hello, Arlene, you are on. So please introduce yourself and yeah.
Hi, my name is Harleen Dillon. I am a junior at Tracy High.
Hi, my name is Reva Dillon, and I just graduated in class of 2020 from Tracy High.
Great.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Harleen, please go ahead.
So thank you for being here, Mr. Silcox. I actually had a question because I'm aware that you have a financial background as a financial advisor. So this question is geared more towards that. Okay. So a lot of students, when making the transition to college, are not often financially prepared. So I was wondering if you would work on implementing classes in high schools or just in the city that are committed to financial education.
You know, I would love to do that. I mean, I would do that once a week if there was a way to do it. Matter of fact, I've done that a little bit for home ec in Tracy High, and so absolutely, I think that education. And it's funny when I go in there and do those classes, I tell them all that you can be a millionaire, and they don't believe me. I would say a third believe me, and 2/3 question me, and a third don't. And then I tell them how, and it's really not as hard as they think. I give them that kind of information. I would love to do that. I could work with the board or with the district leadership and the schools, and I have done that to some degree. Not necessarily the way you're probably describing, but happy to do that.
So before I get into my question, I was just wondering how familiar you are with Tracy Unified School District's problem when it comes to racism and homophobia.
Well, tell me more. Tell me what you're thinking the problem is, and I don't know exactly what you're thinking about specifically, but okay. I mean, as a person, I believe everyone is viewed the same way. That's how I believe it should be.
Yeah, and
all equal.
Amazing.
So. Go ahead.
Okay. So I heard that you were on the school board for coming up about 2 years now. And as a student at Tracy High, and I know it's extremely prevalent at Tracy High, there have been certain racist incidents. So there was a manifesto written against just Black people in general. There was a girl who participated in blackface. There was also a student who made a whole video about why being gay or having anything that when you aren't heterosexual and how that's wrong, how that's anti-American. So it's not something that's rare in the Tracy Unified School District at all. And it's something that's been brought up throughout my 4 years of high school. And I can't even fathom how much more it's happened before that. And nothing has really been done to the extent that makes students feel safe. So I think the biggest thing that students are looking for now is just a feeling of being heard. And I was just wondering how you can help that, or if you're going to take steps towards that.
That's a really good question. I don't think it's just Tracy High that's part of the issue, or as you say, as you feel it is. It's our society to some degree. And, obviously we've come a long way as a society, but there's still ways to go. Certainly I don't agree with any homophobia or racist, posts or I think those people should be held accountable for whatever this consequence is for their particular action. I think people should be held accountable in every part of life, not just racism or homophobia, which is terrible, but every part of life. They should be held accountable for their decisions. But specifically right now, I mean, it's unbelievable that still goes on. I don't think it's ever right. But as a board member, I can just encourage the the truth to come out and to see it as it is. They do some trainings as a district. They've done trainings for their leadership and for their staff. And I think there needs to be more of that. Obviously, that's not enough. And you know, I don't know if that answers the question, or if that satisfies you. As far as the specific instances you're referring to, I don't know all the details you're referring to, so it's hard for me to speak specifically about all that. But I'm happy to talk about this issue outside of this call and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just wanted to bring up those specifics to show how prevalent it is, because I can list those off the top of my head, and there's so many more that I must have happened. So I just wanted to get your take on that. And pretty much, I was also wondering, like, as a member of the school board, like what are you being trained on when it comes to dealing with those issues, or trying to help principals and other administration deal with those issues? Because it seems like they are very disconnected from what a punishment or what any repercussions should be.
So as a board member, I don't receive training specifically from the district on this issue. That training happens with the school sites and so forth. So I don't necessarily receive it. I could tell you, I would say every board member feels the same way I'm speaking. They don't feel like it's appropriate, you know, and it's not called for these days, any day, but especially now. It's not. It's really, now's the time to really bring people together as opposed to divide. And certainly racism or homophobia is divisive in nature. And but you know, we got to keep improving as individuals. And you know, in my company, we do trainings as well. So it's not like, and I think everybody could probably speak about that as far as their institutions they work for, that they're receiving training. And we just got to keep moving forward. In my opinion, we just got to keep moving forward. I have African American friends. I have gay friends, and I certainly see them and view them the same way I see anybody else. And so, and I think as we teach our children that message, that's the best thing I can do as an individual. You know, and that's that because I can influence them most. And then the second part is in my job, of course, as a board member, just to keep encouraging that conversation.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to know, is that to make sure that, and you individually, I love that you are supportive of everyone, but like that's definitely not the case of what I've seen, especially of certain administration members within Tracy Unified. So it's really good to hear that, and I would hope and expect that if you do get this position, we continue to have that conversation.
Well, you need to take a step further. I would say the district leadership, outside of the board, feels the same way. They don't, and the people I associate with, I don't sense any form of. I mean, I feel like they would want to solve any of those issues as soon as possible, and figure out what the issues are and address them. As you know, a lot of the district leadership they're not white. You know, there obviously are white folks in there, but there's a lot of people in key positions that are of different races, different backgrounds, and that's all good. I love it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and for explaining your take on this. Yes, so it's a diverse community. We are facing these concerns, and we are listening it firsthand from the student. So thank you very much appreciate for coming on the show. So Herlene, what's your question next?
So this one's more geared to, in response to COVID, with all school being online, it's kind of cut that social nature and aspect of school. It's really hard to be interactive. So how would you combat certain situations like students being able to, do lab-based activities? Because, a lot of students don't have the supplies at home to do different labs. So how would you work on making sure students still get that same, hands-on education that's required for different STEM classes?
Well, at this point, the decision's a little bit out of our hands. And so, but at some point, I anticipate a transition to the AB schedule in some form. There's definitely going to be safety protocols that will need to be followed, especially in group setting. And, as far as what to do now, I don't know if there's really a good solution to what to do today in the present, because if the district promotes or teachers promote getting together on their own, that could be seen as going against what the county is telling us what we should be doing. But certainly, as a parent, I want that too, and so, I want my kids, half the value of education is obviously the academic experience, but also the social and interacting with kids, and also, respect for others. That's the other half that's totally getting missed out in this whole process. But it's nobody's fault necessarily. So it's just my belief that as soon as we can get back to school, we need to do that. We need to push for that, even with the flack that's going to be given in that moment. And because I think as a parent, as a board member, we serve the students and the families. That's who the education's client is the students and the families. So we have to add as much value to them, and obviously, like I said, half the value is the social, the respecting authority, interaction with other students, and that's the other half that is getting totally lost right now. And I don't really have a good solution because we're forced out at this point, but I hope to get to that point soon.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jeremy and Herlene, Rabia. Much appreciate coming on the show and asking the first-hand questions, because that's how we learn, as Jeremy kind of shared his point of view and his thoughts. So this will trigger in communication between amongst the students as well as the faculty members. So these things should be brought on so that these should be analyzed, and so some action plan should be made to eradicate it. So thank you, Arlene and Rabia, again, so for joining. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so on just one follow-up thing on that, Jeremy. So I was reading another article. So it's mentioned that around 230 to 300 students, they are declining in Tracy Unified District consistently for 12 years. And we are a growing community year by year, month by month. The city is growing. So I don't think there should be a shortage of students in the communities. So what do you think, what reasons are behind it, as these school-going kids, they mentioned some of the reasons. So those could be behind those or some other things. And how do you want to approach it as a candidate if you get selected?
So I think part of the issue is the demographics. A first-time home or a young family home. If a young family's coming to town to buy a home, it's a brand new home is over $500,000. And so part of this is demographics. I think the community's aging a little bit, and that's reflected in the numbers of kids going to school through the classes. If you look from kindergarten to 12th grade, it's just incrementally getting smaller new groups coming in. So part of the solution is to offer, first of all, I don't think the district can control the demographics. They're not involved in planning development of new construction or new homes and so forth. But I think the district can control adding as much value as possible to the student body, adding a charter school or an independent study, having good programs. I mean, if I'm a parent, I would just advise people to get involved in a program, whether it's like my son and daughter in JROTC. We love that program. They're also in a couple sports. We love those programs because they engage those kids in activities outside of school. They keep them motivated to keep moving forward. And so from a big picture perspective, I think about people and programs, finding and training the right people, and then developing the right types of programs that support the community, support the families. And I spent a lot of time prior to COVID with the superintendent going out to newer teachers in the first or second year and observing their classrooms. And what I saw was they hired well. They've hired well for the long run. And I think that is so critical for a district to hire well, because as some of you may or may not know, education has tenure. outside of 2 years, it's hard to get rid of somebody, even though they're underperforming. So it's so critical that we hire well, that the district hires well, and that's been my observation as I've gone to different schools, from the elementary schools to middle school to high school, and I see these new teachers, that it's really impressive to see who the district has hired. So again, it's about adding value. Going back to your question, about adding as much value as possible, having the right programs in place to support the students that want to engage in, like the space and engineering or the ag programs or whatever it is. Those are all important to keep people engaged. And I think those kids tend to get served or moved through more successfully. And that, I think, is the solution to, there's some realities that we're not going to get around. We're going to probably decline over the course of time at some level. But if we could win on the margins to add more kids to some degree, then I think that's the job of the education group.
Right. No, thank you, Jeremy. You kind of hit the right point. Yes. So you have to work with add-on programs like AP programs and whatever that are interesting to the students, so that they keep going to these schools and don't look for other options or other alternatives, because this is a big school district with lots of resources. So you have to use those resources, and as you mentioned, hire well. Yes. So instructors should be well focused towards the development of our students.
I think we have one more question from Reva.
Sorry.
Since this is about the students.
I know I'm hitting you with some difficult questions, but so the next thing that I wanted to ask about was about mental health and like just concern, and this goes especially for high school students. Because I know while we were at school, there was only 4 counselors and you had to make an appointment super in advance. And it was super difficult to talk to them. So I can't imagine how it is now and with everyone online and being home in environments that may not be conducive to them being successful in school. So I was wondering if there's anything that's in place or that you would like to implement, like when it comes to supporting students with mental health issues.
Well, that's a really good question. Those are kids that need more service than probably most. Right now, the way it works is if a parent feels like my student needs mental health, they can go to the teacher or the leadership and just address that issue. Then the teachers and the principals work with referring that student for mental health services. Now that could also trigger from a teacher. If a teacher recognizes that so-and-so needs mental health services, they approach the parent and the principal and try to find, first of all, agree that that's the case, and then get them to the next phase, which is where they're actually receiving mental health services. That also applies to leadership and administration. So if a principal or assistant principal observes, or a counselor observes some form of issue with mental health, they can approach teachers and the parents. So it's really kind of a three-way, three groups of people that have the opportunity to observe mental health. And again, they will get referred to whatever the issue is, but they're going to work together. That's how it's going to go. They're going to work together to try to address those issues.
Okay, and I guess I'm also kind of wondering, because you were talking about observation and being able to see someone's mental health, but since there is so much like over screens and there's so much behind and not being with someone in person, is there anything that can kind of like allow students, or is there anything that teachers are being trained on, like signs that they should be looking for that don't have to be in person, that wouldn't have to be me crying in front of a teacher?
You want to come talk to my kids? It would be great for my kids. We have this conversation at home all the time, not necessarily around mental health, but the screen. I don't know, as parents who are involved in their kids, I feel like we try to solve that at home. Now, I recognize that that's not how all families are organized. So, I just think we all have to have our antenna up with all our associations with youth and kind of get an idea where people are individually, especially right now. You know, I think we all have to reach out a little more as a community. I think we have to be, I don't know if there's a direct answer to your question other than we as a community are more thoughtful about our neighbors and the people around us, the people of different races, kind of like what you're saying. I think we have to be more thoughtful about those people and not knowing exactly where people come from, you know, as far as where they're at mentally, just engage them in conversation. But as far as a program, you know, I don't know if there's necessarily a program that specifically speaks to that, how to find that. I believe there is some training going on, but I can't say that all in the district have received training to find mental health, you know, to find or address mental health within youth. But it certainly is prevalent. So I just think as a community, we have to be more mindful of the people around us.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true as a community, we do, but I just wanted to make sure that as a district and as a school board that you guys were maybe working on implementing something, just because distance learning is so difficult for so many different students. So,
well, that's kind of why the first part was, that's why I was hoping to address that in my first set of comments, that it at this point, you know, that people are hamstrung a little bit on what we can actually do as far as offering certain services. So at this point, it's really triggered by the parent and the teachers.
Okay.
They're the front line. The teachers are the front line, and they're going to probably observe it more than anybody outside of the parents. So it really, that's where it has to happen if somebody is struggling with mental illness.
And do you know if a student were to reach out, if they would be able to receive the same kind of attention that would happen if a parent was reaching out on their behalf?
If students were, yeah. If a student says I need some mental, you know, I can't speak for every situation, but certainly if somebody comes to a teacher and says, you know, I'm feeling depressed, I'm going to say most people I know are going to take that pretty serious.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And to supplement to Jeremy's answer, I think, Jeremy, you covered it really well and you gave a great information and that your answers were great. Just to supplement on top of that, like you said, as a community, we need to work together and think together how we can all work on this. This is just not only an issue for the high school students or children that's studying in the school. It's impacting adult life as well. With this COVID, it's teaching us very many different things in various ways. I can't go and hang out with my friends. You have a cutoff with your social circle. What do you do? How do you find yourself to kind of fill that gap? That is something we need to reach out to each other, and maybe students can have, if there's a club or something within their school district or within their school, the club as a presidents and other folks, they can be mentor to each other. They can call each other and help each other and kind of ask like how they're doing, if they need to talk about something. Because sometimes I believe when I was a kid, I was very afraid of my mom. I was not able to talk to her if I needed something, but I always felt comfortable going to my uncle, my dad's brother, and I would be able to articulate and share my feelings and things that I'm going through. I think you need to find somebody in your life. It could be your friend, it could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your sister, but you need to work together on this. And like you said, it's not always what we can ask from our school district or what we can ask from our city. We need to work in a collaboration to see how we all can give and take to each other. That is just my perspective on that.
And that's a great perspective, Raj, and also addressing Jeremy as well. Being a parent of a teen and then also seeing a lot of her friends and teenagers around her. A lot of this, I think, moving forward, the school district will have to really give this some serious thought, because a lot of these issues are not so prevalent sometimes at home, and it's not so apparent to a parent. And a lot of times it is the teachers or, you know, the school that's more aware of it. And now with this whole distance learning, there's also a layer of where all these students, even at a young age, I'm talking to, families that have fourth graders, fifth graders, the anxiety for even those very young children is a reality. It's really there. So I think, again, going forward, that's going to be something I think, the district will have to address, as the nation is addressing it, the same problem too.
Definitely. And I just want to be mindful. It's like we're hitting our 50 minutes, almost an hour. We had Jeremy like 30 to 45 minutes. So I think if we need to have more questions or more clarification, we probably will be happy to host another session. It'll be fair for Jeremy as well and fair for all our audience too. So what do you guys think?
I think
that's good. Yeah. Yeah, so in the end, so I would request Jeremy, so if you'll just summarize and some of the key points that you want our audience to take away. What is your stand? And if you are elected, what changes or what things you will be focused on?
So to sum it up, I would say I hope what you take away is I take a global view of the direction of the district. That's what I think about, what direction we're going. As a coach, when I think about coaching football, what's the direction we're going, and what are the bottlenecks? How do we make improvements and address the issues that are slowing us from moving in that direction, and address them to move forward? And so I try to take a global view at decisions that are made. Of course, we all want to fight for everyone and every program and every family, but that's not necessarily what's best for the whole. And I think that's the message I want to get, as I feel like I'm a reasonable person. Those that know me will say the same, that I come from multiple perspectives: parent, coach, teacher, ex-student. Of course, that was a while ago, but still some of those same, I feel like the teachers that taught me are retiring now or have retired. And I feel like that's a legacy that I can help carry on, to a small degree. I know it's a small position, and I have a little influence as a board member, but I feel like I can be a reasonable person for the general direction, what's best for the board as a whole, I would order it in students, staff, and facilities. That's what I think about. What's best for students, then what's best for staff, and then what's best for facility. And so that's the message I want to take away, or I want to send. I hope you guys receive. That's how I view things. And of course, there's specific things to fight for, but there's always trade-offs, and that's what people don't recognize. There's always trade-offs, and if you make one decision, it will affect somebody in a different way. Although it might be good for this group, it might be bad for another group. But I try to take a global view to these decisions. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Very respectful. I love the questions, and I'm happy to do this again. And thank you for your time.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you, Neela and Raj, for being here. And Jeremy, you have the key takeaway that I have is you are for the right program. So is it the financial? Is it the mental health? And yes, this is a tough time. The district has to make the tough decisions, and you'll be analyzing those and what would be in the best interest of the students and best interest of the parents. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. And for follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to Jeremy, ask follow-up questions, because I'm pretty sure you will be having some thoughts in your minds. Or please share those questions with us. We will definitely share them with Jeremy. Thank you very much, all, and have a wonderful time ahead. We'll see you next time.
Thank
you, Jeremy. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.